Welcome to The Chair, the podcast from Cognitive Curves, where we dive deep into mental health with real conversations. I'm Alex, and like many of you, I struggle with social anxiety. Every day feels like a battle. Walking into a room, making small talk, it's overwhelming. Today, we're sitting down with Dr. Ryan, a psychologist who specializes in anxiety disorders. I'll be asking the questions that have haunted me for years. So let's get into it. Dr. Ryan, I've read about social anxiety, but why is it that no matter how much I try to convince myself that I'm safe, my heart still races and my palms get sweaty? It's like my body betrays me.
Great question, Alex. What you're describing is a classic symptom of social anxiety. What's happening is that your brain perceives social situations as threatening, even if there's no real danger. This triggers the fight or flight response. The part of your brain responsible for this reaction is the amygdala. Its job is to alert you to potential threats, except, in the case of social anxiety, it's overactive and reacts to social situations as if you're facing a physical threat.
So you're saying my body reacts the same way it would if I were, in a dangerous situation?
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you were face-to-face with a predator, your body would react. Your heart races, adrenaline kicks in, your palms sweat. That's your body preparing to fight or flee. With social anxiety, though, it's a false alarm. There's no real threat, but your body responds as if there is. It's the brain's way of protecting you, even though there's nothing to be afraid of in that moment.
I get that, but why me? Why do some people handle social situations just fine and I freeze?
That's another great question. Social anxiety can have a few roots. For some, it's genetic. If your parents were anxious, you might be more predisposed to it. For others, it's learned through past experiences. Maybe you had an embarrassing moment growing up, and your brain has since associated social situations with fear or shame. There's also the cognitive aspect. People with social anxiety tend to have negative beliefs about themselves, like, I'm going to mess up, or people will think I'm awkward.
Yeah, I definitely have those thoughts. I'm always afraid people will judge me or think I'm weird. How do I stop those thoughts from taking over?
That's something called a cognitive distortion. Your mind exaggerates the risk of social situations and assumes the worst. A technique that's really helpful here is cognitive restructuring. It's about recognizing these negative thoughts and challenging them. Let's say you're at a party and think, everyone's staring at me. Ask yourself, is that really true? Challenge the thought by looking for evidence to the contrary. Are people really staring, or are they just enjoying the party like everyone else? By reframing the narrative, you start to take control over those thoughts instead of letting them control you.
Okay, so it's like I need to become more aware of the stories I'm telling myself in those moments. But I'm not going to lie, when I'm in the middle of a panic attack, it feels impossible to think clearly.
And that's completely normal. That's why it's important to start practicing these techniques when you're not in the middle of a stressful situation. It's like mental rehearsal. Train your brain to challenge those negative thoughts so that when you're in the moment, you've already laid the groundwork.
I've heard of exposure therapy. Is that what you're talking about? Just putting myself out there?
Yes, but with a gradual approach. You don't want to throw yourself into your biggest fear right away. Start small. Maybe it's making eye contact with a barista or saying hello to a neighbor. Build your confidence in low-stakes situations. Over time, as you successfully navigate these smaller interactions, your brain will learn that it doesn't need to trigger that fight-or-flight response.
I guess part of the struggle is that I'm so hard on myself. Every time I stumble in a conversation, I beat myself up about it.
That's so common, and it's important to talk about. Self-compassion plays a huge role in overcoming social anxiety. Think about how you would comfort a friend who's going through the same thing. Would you criticize them? Probably not. You'd reassure them, tell them they did their best. That's the kind of kindness you need to give yourself. Overcoming social anxiety isn't about being perfect in every interaction. It's about accepting that you're human and that it's okay to stumble.
Sometimes I feel like this anxiety will never go away. Is that just something I have to accept?
Not at all. Social anxiety is absolutely treatable. It takes time, practice, and the right tools, but many people overcome it. The key is to be patient with yourself and understand that progress can be gradual. You won't wake up one day and be anxiety-free, but over time, you'll start to notice that you're handling situations better. The fact that you're here, asking these questions, shows that you're already on the path to recovery.
Thanks, Dr. Ryan. This has really opened my eyes to how my brain works and how I can start tackling social anxiety.
I'm glad to hear that, Alex. Remember, you're not alone in this. Social anxiety is common, but with the right support and strategies, it's something you can manage and even overcome.